The whispers started before the ceremony even began. I heard she can't speak properly. Some kind of voice defect. That's why she's been silent at every event. Poor Mr. Castellanos. Imagine having to wake up next to someone who can barely talk. It's just for appearances. He needs a wife to save his opera house. She needs to escape that stepmother of hers. What a tragic arrangement. The voices floated through the thin walls of the courthouse waiting room, each word landing like a stone. Vera Ashford stood alone in that small space, her fingers trembling around a bouquet of white lilies someone had handed her an hour ago. The flowers felt heavy, foreign, like they belonged to someone else's wedding day. She wore a cream-colored dress that her stepmother had chosen that morning. Modest, Margaret had said, her voice dripping with false concern. Something that won't draw too much attention. You'll just stand there and say your vows. Quietly. Don't embarrass Mr. Castellanos with that awful voice of yours. Vera was 26 years old. This was supposed to be her wedding day. She should have felt something. Joy, maybe. Excitement. Hope. Instead, she felt like a piece of furniture being moved from one room to another. Sold to the highest bidder. Delivered to a new address. Through the wall, more whispers. Julian Hayes is sacrificing himself to save 800 jobs. Now Alessandro Castellanos is doing the same thing. These men and their business marriages. At least Hayes got lucky. His bride turned out to be beautiful. Castellanos won't be so fortunate. I heard the voice thing is really bad. Like nails on a chalkboard when she tries to speak above a whisper. Vera closed her eyes. She had heard these kinds of words her whole life. Defective. Broken. Unmarriageable. A burden with a voice so grating, so shrill, so fundamentally wrong that it hurt people's ears to hear it. Don't sing, Margaret had snapped when Vera was 11, just after her father died. Your voice is terrible. Shrill and painful. Your mother may have been an opera singer, but you inherited nothing from her except her name. Stay quiet, Vera. It's better for everyone. So Vera had learned to stay quiet. She spoke in whispers when she had to speak at all. She never sang. Never hummed. Never raised her voice above the softest murmur. For 15 years, she had made herself small and silent, believing that her very sound was an offense to the world. A knock on the door made her jump. Miss Ashford. It's time. The coordinator's voice was professional but cold. Vera forced her feet to move. One step. Then another. The hallway was short but felt endless. At the end, her stepmother waited, elegant in a dark blue suit that probably cost more than Vera had been allowed to spend on anything in years. Margaret didn't meet her eyes as she took Vera's arm. Her grip was firm. Possessive. Remember what I told you, Margaret whispered as they approached the ceremony room. Speak your vows clearly but quietly. Don't let your voice crack. Don't draw attention to yourself. And for God's sake, don't embarrass me or Mr. Castellanos. This arrangement is the best thing that could have happened to you. Don't ruin it. The doors opened. The room was small for a wedding. A courthouse ceremony, not a church. Barely 30 people filled the rows of seats. Most of them sat on the groom's side. Business associates, Vera assumed. Board members from the opera house. Donors. People who had come to witness their director make a sacrifice for the good of the company. On Vera's side sat 3 people. Margaret's secretary, who looked bored. Margaret's lawyer, who was checking his phone. And a distant cousin Vera had met exactly once, who had probably come hoping for free food. Every eye in the room turned to stare as Vera walked down the aisle. She could feel their judgment. Their curiosity. Their pity. Some people didn't even bother hiding their phones as they took pictures of the bride with a defective voice. Then she saw him. Alessandro Castellanos stood at the front of the room beside the officiant. He was taller than she had imagined. Broad-shouldered beneath a perfectly tailored navy suit. His skin was a deep olive tone, his hair dark with threads of silver at the temples. His eyes were an unusual shade of amber. Intense. Assessing. He watched her approach with an expression that gave nothing away. No warmth. No welcome. Just the careful neutrality of a man about to sign a contract he wasn't particularly happy about but had decided was necessary. Vera had only met Alessandro once before. 2 weeks ago, when Margaret had brought her to his office in the financial district to finalize the arrangement. The meeting had lasted less than 20 minutes. Alessandro had studied Vera's face for perhaps 30 seconds, then nodded curtly. The arrangement is acceptable. We'll marry on the 15th. My lawyer will handle the paperwork. He hadn't asked her a single question. Hadn't tried to know her at all. Why would he? This was a business transaction, nothing more. He needed a wife to satisfy the Opera House board, to prove he was stable and responsible enough to deserve their continued funding. Margaret needed to finally be rid of the stepdaughter she had resented for 15 years. And Vera needed an escape from the house that had been her prison since her father died. Everyone got what they wanted. Except maybe her. When Vera reached the front of the room, Margaret practically pushed her forward before taking her seat in the front row. Vera stumbled slightly. Alessandro's hand shot out to steady her. His grip was gentle but firm. For just a second, their eyes met. Then he released her and turned to face the officiant. The ceremony began. The officiant's voice was flat and professional, reading from a standard script. We are gathered here today to join Alessandro Dante Costillanos and Vera Catherine Ashford in matrimony. Marriage is a sacred bond, a commitment entered into with love and respect. Love. Respect. The words felt like lies in this context. The officiant continued through the legal formalities. Community property. Rights and responsibilities. The business of marriage laid bare without any pretense of romance. Do you, Alessandro Dante Costillanos, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife? I do. His voice was rich and deep. A trained voice, Vera realized. Of course it was. He had spent his entire career directing opera singers, shaping voices, understanding the mechanics of sound. His own voice resonated through the small room with effortless authority. And do you, Vera Catherine Ashford, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband? Vera's throat tightened. She had practiced this. Just 2 words. Clearly but quietly, the way Margaret had instructed. I do. The words came out as barely more than a whisper. So soft that the officiant leaned forward slightly, his expression uncertain. I'm sorry, could you repeat that? Shame burned through Vera's chest and up into her face. She could feel everyone staring. Could imagine what they were thinking. She really does have a terrible voice. How sad. How awkward. Poor Mr. Costillanos. I do, Vera said again, forcing the words louder but still not much above a whisper. The officiant nodded, though his expression remained uncomfortable. Then by the power vested in me by the state of New York, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Alessandro turned to face her fully. They stood there for a moment, 2 strangers bound together by law and necessity. Then, following the expected protocol, he leaned in and pressed a brief kiss to her lips. It was over in less than a second. Formal as a handshake. Impersonal as signing a lease. Polite applause scattered through the room like rain on a window. They were married. Alessandro took Vera's hand and led her back down the aisle. His palm was warm against hers, his fingers long and elegant. Musicians' hands, she thought distantly. Or conductors' hands. Through the scattered applause, Vera could still hear the whispers following them. Did you see how quiet she was? She really can't speak properly. Poor man. At least the business deal is solid. The opera house is saved. That's what matters. Outside the courthouse, a black car waited at the curb. The driver opened the door without a word. Alessandro gestured for Vera to enter first. She slid across the leather seat, and he followed, maintaining a careful distance between them. The car pulled away from the courthouse. Vera stared out the window, watching the city pass by. Manhattan buildings gave way to tree-lined streets as they headed toward the estate. She was married now. Mrs. Costillanos. It didn't feel real. Just another cage replacing the old one, but this one came with better furniture. They drove in silence for several minutes. Vera was acutely aware of Alessandro beside her. The subtle scent of his cologne. The sound of his breathing. The weight of his presence. Finally, he spoke. I need to apologize. Vera turned to look at him, surprised. For what? For everything. for this whole situation. He ran a hand through his hair, disrupting its careful styling. You deserve better than this. A real wedding with people who care about you. A husband who married you for love, not a business merger. I'm sorry this is what your life has become. His words were kind, but they made Vera's chest ache in a way she didn't expect. You don't need to apologize. You're saving your opera house. 800 people get to keep their jobs because of this marriage. That matters more than a fancy wedding. Alessandro studied her for a moment. Your stepmother said you'd be compliant and undemanding. I'm starting to think she doesn't know you at all. She doesn't, Vera admitted quietly. But then, nobody really does. The car turned onto a long driveway lined with tall trees. At the end, a mansion emerged from the greenery. Stone walls, tall windows, manicured gardens spreading out on either side. It was beautiful in a way that felt untouchable. Like a museum. Like something Vera had no business entering. This is home, Alessandro said as the car stopped at the front entrance. You're home now, too. A woman stood at the front door, wiping her hands on an apron. She was perhaps in her late 50s, with kind eyes and silver hair pulled back in a neat bun. When Alessandro and Vera got out of the car, the woman hurried down the steps with a warm smile. Welcome, welcome. I'm Rosa. I manage the household. And you must be Mrs. Costillanos. The name sounded strange to Vera's ears. Foreign. Like it belonged to someone else. It's nice to meet you, Vera whispered. Rosa's smile faltered slightly at the quiet voice, but she recovered quickly. Mr. Costillanos, your bride is lovely. Absolutely lovely. Alessandro's expression softened when he looked at Rosa. Thank you for preparing everything. Of course. Rosa turned back to Vera. I've made up your room. I hope you'll be comfortable. If you need anything at all, you just let me know. Vera followed them inside. The mansion was even more impressive on the interior. Marble floors. High ceilings. Art on the walls that looked original and expensive. Fresh flowers in crystal vases. Everything perfect and pristine and somehow hollow. Beautiful but empty. Let me show you to your room, Alessandro said. They climbed a curved staircase to the second floor. The hallway stretched in both directions, doors lining both sides. Alessandro led her to the right, to the end of the corridor. This is your room. He opened the door. My room is on the opposite side of the house. I thought you'd want privacy. Of course he did. Why would he want to be anywhere near his defective wife? The room was lovely. Large windows overlooking the gardens. Soft grey bedding on a queen-sized bed. A sitting area with comfortable chairs and a small bookshelf. A door leading to what Vera assumed was a private bathroom. It's beautiful, Vera whispered. Thank you. Rosa will bring your things up shortly. Alessandro paused in the doorway. We'll have dinner at 7, if that suits you. Unless you'd prefer to eat in your room tonight. I'd understand if you wanted time alone. Dinner together would be fine. He nodded and turned to leave, then stopped. Vera. One more thing. Yes. I know this marriage isn't what either of us would have chosen. But I want you to know that you're safe here. I won't make demands of you. Won't force you into anything you're not comfortable with. This is your home. Your space. You set the boundaries. Vera didn't know what to say. She had expected coldness. Distance. Perhaps cruelty. But Alessandro's quiet respect caught her off guard. Thank you. After he left, Vera sat on the edge of the bed. Her wedding day was over. She was married to a stranger. She lived in a mansion now. She had escaped Margaret's house. So why did she feel lonelier than ever? A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Rosa entered carrying 2 suitcases, everything Vera owned in the world. Here we are, dear. Rosa set the suitcases down gently. I'll leave you to settle in. Dinner is at 7 in the small dining room. I'll come fetch you if you'd like, so you don't get lost. That would be helpful. Thank you. Rosa paused at the door. Mrs. Costillanos, may I say something? Of course. Mr. Costillanos is a good man. He's been through a great deal these past few years. The opera house crisis, His mother's death before that. He works too hard and carries too much on his shoulders. But his heart is kind. Give him time. Give yourself time, too. Sometimes the best things come from the most unexpected beginnings. After Rosa left, Vera unpacked her meager belongings. A few changes of clothes. Some books. A photograph of her mother and father from before the accident. She set the photo on the nightstand and stared at it for a long moment. Her mother, Isabella Ashford, had been beautiful. Dark hair, bright eyes, a smile that suggested she knew secrets the rest of the world didn't. An opera singer. A star, according to the old reviews Vera had found in boxes in Margaret's attic. Isabella had performed at prestigious venues across the country before she retired to marry Vera's father. And then she had died in a car accident when Vera was 11. Her father had died too. And Vera had been left with Margaret, who had spent the next 15 years making sure Vera knew exactly how much of a burden she was. "Your mother's talent died with her," Margaret used to say. "You have nothing of hers except her name, and even that's wasted on you." Vera touched the photograph gently, then turned away. That evening, Rosa came to collect her for dinner. She led Vera through the sprawling house to a smaller dining room. Not the formal space with a long table that could seat 20, but a more intimate room with a round table set for 2. Alessandro was already there, standing by the window. He had changed out of his suit into dark slacks and a casual button-down shirt. He looked different like this. Less intimidating. More human. "I hope you're settling in all right," he said as Vera entered. "Yes. The room is perfect." They sat down, and Rosa brought out the first course. A simple salad with a light vinaigrette. They ate in silence for a few minutes, the quiet broken only by the soft clink of silverware against china. Finally, Alessandro spoke. "I've been thinking about what I said earlier. About you deserving better. And I realize I didn't ask what you want from this arrangement. What would make this situation bearable for you?" Vera looked up, surprised. "I don't know. I haven't thought about it." "Then think about it now. If you could have anything, what would it be?" Vera considered the question. What did she want? She had spent so long just trying to survive Margaret's household that she had forgotten how to want anything beyond escape. "Freedom," she said finally. "To come and go as I please. To not have to ask permission for every little thing. To not feel like I'm walking on eggshells all the time." "Done." Alessandro said it simply, like it was the easiest thing in the world. "You're not a prisoner here, Vera. You're my wife. This is your home. You can go anywhere, do anything. I won't control you or monitor you. You're free." Vera felt something tight in her chest begin to loosen. "What about you?" she asked. "What do you want from this arrangement?" "Honestly, for the opera house to survive. For 800 people to keep their jobs. And beyond that," he paused, "I suppose I'd like to not feel quite so alone in this house anymore." "Were you alone before?" "My mother died 10 years ago. My father lives across the country. We're not close. My sister is at university in Boston. The house has felt empty for a long time." Alessandro's expression was distant. "I thought having a wife would change that. Make it feel like a home again. But I don't want you to feel like you have to fill that role if you don't want to. I don't know what role I'm supposed to fill." "Then maybe we both just try to figure it out as we go." They finished dinner with slightly less awkward conversation. Alessandro asked about her day, told her briefly about the opera house and the production they were planning for the fall season. It was polite. Careful. Two strangers trying to find common ground. After dinner, Vera excused herself and returned to her room. She changed into a nightgown that Rosa had laid out, washed her face, brushed her teeth. The bathroom was larger than her bedroom had been at Margaret's house. Marble counters. A deep soaking tub. Luxuries she had never experienced. She climbed into bed and stared at the ceiling. Somewhere across the house, Alessandro was doing the same thing. Her husband. A man she barely knew. A man who had married her out of necessity and was trying, at least, to be kind about it. It was more than she had expected. But somehow, it made the loneliness feel sharper. The next morning, Vera woke to sunlight streaming through windows she had forgotten to cover. For a moment, she didn't know where she was. Then memory returned. The wedding. The mansion. Alessandro. She got dressed in simple clothes and made her way downstairs. The house was quiet. A clock in the hallway showed it was just past 8. Rosa appeared from the kitchen with a warm smile. "Good morning, Mrs. Castellanos. Mr. Castellanos left for the opera house about an hour ago. He said to tell you to make yourself at home. Explore the house. Use anything you'd like. Breakfast is ready whenever you want it." "Thank you." Vera ate alone in the small dining room. Fresh fruit, toast, scrambled eggs. More food than she usually ate for breakfast. At Margaret's house, she had been expected to make do with whatever leftovers were available. After breakfast, she began exploring. The house was enormous. 8 bedrooms, 6 bathrooms. A formal dining room. A casual dining room. A library filled with books. A home gym. A music room. She stopped at that last door. It was different from the others. While most of the doors in the house were painted white and stood open or easily accessible, this one was solid oak. And it had a small brass lock. Vera tried the handle. Locked. "That's the music room," Rosa said behind her. Vera jumped, startled. "Sorry, dear. Didn't mean to sneak up on you." Rosa came to stand beside her. That room belonged to Mr. Castellanos' mother, Caterina Castellanos. She was quite famous in her day. An opera singer. Vera's heart skipped. An opera singer? Oh, yes. One of the best. She performed everywhere that mattered. La Scala, the Met, Covent Garden. When she retired, she had this room designed specially for her. A place to practice, to teach, to stay connected to music. Rosa's expression grew sad. After she passed away 10 years ago, Mr. Castellanos locked it. Said it hurt too much to be in there. He hasn't opened it since. Vera stared at the locked door. 2 mothers. Both opera singers. Both gone. "My mother was an opera singer too," Vera said quietly. "Isabella Ashford." Rosa's eyes widened. "Isabella Ashford was your mother?" "Oh, my dear. She was magnificent. I saw her perform once, years ago. La Traviata. I cried through the whole final act. Her voice was like heaven." Vera looked away. "I didn't inherit her talent. My voice is terrible." Rosa studied her with an expression Vera couldn't quite read. "Who told you that?" "My stepmother. Many times." Rosa's tone suggested she didn't quite believe it, but she didn't press. "The key to the music room is in the kitchen, if you ever want to open it. Top drawer, left side. Mr. Castellanos told me to keep it available." "Why would he do that if he won't go in himself?" "Maybe he thinks someone should use it. Maybe he thinks both the room and the person need it." Over the next few days, Vera settled into a strange routine. Alessandro left for the opera house early each morning and returned late each evening. They would eat dinner together, make polite conversation about their days, then retreat to their separate rooms. It was civil, comfortable, even, but distant. Vera spent her days reading in the library, walking through the gardens, trying to figure out what to do with all this newfound freedom. She had imagined that escaping Margaret's house would feel liberating. Instead, it felt disorienting. Like she had been released from a cage but forgotten how to fly. On the 4th evening, Alessandro came home earlier than usual. Vera was in the library, curled up in a chair with a book, when he appeared in the doorway. "May I join you?" "Of course. It's your house." "It's our house." He sat in the chair across from her. "How are you settling in?" "Fine. Rosa has been very kind. She's wonderful. Been with the family for 15 years. Alessandro loosened his tie. "Vera, I realize we've been living like polite strangers. And I suppose that's what we are, in a way. But I was thinking, maybe we could try to actually get to know each other. If you're willing." Vera set down her book. "I'd like that." "Good." He leaned back in his chair. "Then let me start with a question. Why did you agree to this arrangement? Your stepmother made it clear she wanted you married off, but you could have refused. You could have found another way to escape her house. Why did you say yes to marrying me? Vera considered the question. Because I had nowhere else to go. No money of my own. No job experience. No friends to help me. Margaret made it clear that either I married you or I stayed with her forever. And I couldn't stay there anymore. Every day in that house felt like drowning. I'm sorry you had to make that choice. Are you? Vera met his eyes. You benefited from it. You got the wife you needed to satisfy your bored. That's true. But I still hate that you were put in that position. Alessandro was quiet for a moment. Can I ask you something else? Yes. Why does your stepmother say you have a voice defect? I've heard you speak. Your voice is quiet, yes, but there's nothing wrong with it. Vera's hands tightened on her book. She says it's shrill, grating, painful to hear. She told me for years that I should never sing, never even speak loudly, because my voice was so terrible it hurt people's ears. And you believed her? Why wouldn't I? She was the only family I had. She raised me for 15 years after my parents died. Why would she lie about something like that? Alessandro's expression was unreadable. May I tell you something I've observed? All right. I've worked with singers my entire career. I've trained voices, directed operas, listened to thousands of people attempt to sing. And in the few days you've been here, every time I've heard you speak, even in whispers, I've noticed something about your voice. What? You have perfect pitch. The way you naturally inflect, the musicality in even your quietest words. That's not something people with terrible voices have. That's a gift. Vera's heart began to pound. You're just being kind. I'm not kind. Ask anyone who works for me. I'm exacting, critical, and brutally honest about musical talent. If your voice was terrible, I'd tell you. But I don't think it is, Vera. I think you've been lied to. That's impossible. Why would Margaret lie about something like that? I don't know. But I'd like to find out. Alessandro stood. There's something I want to show you. He led her through the house to the east wing, to the locked oak door. He pulled a key from his pocket. I haven't opened this room in 10 years. But I think it's time. He unlocked the door and pushed it open. Inside was the most beautiful room Vera had ever seen. Floor-to-ceiling windows filled the space with natural light. A grand piano sat in the center, its black surface dusty but clearly well made. The walls were lined with shelves holding music sheets, books about opera, framed photographs of a beautiful woman performing on stage. In one corner stood a harp. In another, a cello. Against the far wall, professional recording equipment. This room was built for music. For creation. For beauty. Vera walked slowly through the space, touching the piano keys gently. They were dusty but still in tune. She picked up a music sheet. La Bohème. Puccini. Her mother had sung Mimi in La Bohème. It had been one of her signature roles. Without thinking, Vera hummed the melody. Softly at first. Then, as the music filled her mind, a little louder. Her voice floated through the room. Soft. Sweet. Uncertain. She stopped abruptly. What was she doing? Her voice was terrible. Shrill and grating. Margaret had made that clear for 15 years. But the room was soundproof. No one could hear her here. And something about this space made Vera feel connected to her mother for the first time since she had died. Vera looked at a photograph of Caterina Costagliano's. The woman was mid-performance, her mouth open, her face filled with passion. What had it felt like to sing like that? To let your voice fill a theater? To share your gift with the world? Vera would never know. Because she had no gift. Just a broken, terrible voice. She turned to leave and knocked into a stack of books. They tumbled to the floor with a crash. Vera. Alessandro's voice came from the hallway, sharp with alarm. What happened? Are you hurt? The door flew open. Alessandro stood there, his face pale, his eyes wild. Then he froze, taking in the open room, the books on the floor, Vera standing among them. You opened the music room. I'm sorry. Vera's voice was barely a whisper. Rosa said the key was available. I shouldn't have. I'll lock it back. No. Alessandro stepped inside slowly, looking around like he was seeing a ghost. His expression shifted through pain, grief, and something else. Something softer. I wanted you to open it. I just didn't think you'd actually do it. Why did you want me to? Because this room shouldn't stay locked. He picked up the photograph of his mother, studying it with sad eyes. She would have hated knowing I shut away everything she loved. That I let grief turn this beautiful space into a tomb. He set the photo down carefully. Did you find what you were looking for? I don't know what I was looking for, Vera admitted. I just felt drawn here. My mother was a singer too. I thought maybe being in a place she would have loved might help me feel close to her again. Alessandro's expression softened. Isabella Ashford was your mother. I saw her perform once. I was young, maybe 16. My mother took me to see her Violetta in La Traviata. He smiled slightly. It was breathtaking. Your mother had a gift. I didn't inherit it. Vera looked away. I can't sing. My voice is terrible. Who told you that? My stepmother. She said I was tone deaf. That my voice was shrill and painful to hear. That I should never sing, never even speak loudly. Alessandro was quiet for a long moment. Did you believe her? Yes. Vera's throat tightened. Why wouldn't I? She raised me. She knew me better than anyone. Or she had her own reasons for wanting you to stay quiet. Alessandro stepped closer. Vera, I've worked with singers my entire life. And in the few days you've been here, I've listened to you speak. Even in whispers, I can hear something. Perfect pitch. Natural musicality. That's not something people with terrible voices have. Vera's heart began to race. You're just being kind. I'm not kind. I'm honest. Alessandro's amber eyes held hers. If your voice was terrible, I wouldn't tell you otherwise. But I don't think it is. I think you've been lied to your whole life. That's impossible. Is it? Why would your stepmother spend 15 years telling you that you can't sing unless she had a reason? Unless she knew the truth and wanted to hide it from you? The words hit Vera like a physical blow. Why would Margaret do that? I don't know. But I'd like to find out. Alessandro gestured to the piano. Would you sing something for me? Just one phrase. If I'm wrong and your voice is as terrible as you've been told, I'll apologize and we'll never speak of this again. No. Terror shot through Vera. I can't. You can. You just choose not to. There's a difference. Alessandro sat at the piano bench. I'll play. You sing. One phrase. Please, Vera. Don't you want to know if you've been lied to? Vera's hands shook. She wanted to run. Wanted to lock herself in her room and never come out. But something in Alessandro's eyes stopped her. Not pity. Not cruelty. Just honest curiosity. And maybe, just maybe, hope. What should I sing? Whatever feels natural. Alessandro's hands moved over the piano keys. He played the opening bars of Quando Invio from La Bohème. Musetta's Waltz. Light, flirtatious, beautiful. Vera knew this song. Her mother had sung it to her as a lullaby when she was small, before the accident, before everything fell apart. She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Alessandro stopped playing. It's all right. Take your breath. Feel the music. Don't think about your stepmother or what you've been told. Just sing. He started again. The melody filled the room, gentle and encouraging. And Vera sang. Quando mi invio soletta per la via. The sound that came from her throat was nothing like she expected. It wasn't shrill. It wasn't grating. It wasn't painful. It was clear. Pure. A soprano voice that floated through the room like light through a window. Vera stopped, shocked. That can't be me. Alessandro had stopped playing. He sat frozen at the piano, his hands hovering over the keys. His face had gone completely white. Sing it again. I can't. I don't. Sing it again, Vera. Please. She sang the phrase again. This time her voice was stronger, more confident. The note soared, filling the room with a sound so beautiful it made her chest ache. When she finished, silence. Alessandro stood from the piano, walked over to her slowly, and to Vera's complete shock, his eyes were filled with tears. "Your stepmother lied to you." He laughed, a sound caught somewhere between disbelief and awe. "Vera, your voice isn't terrible. Your voice is extraordinary. You have your mother's gift." Vera's legs gave out. She sat down hard on the floor, her whole body shaking. "That's not possible. I would have known. Someone would have told me." "Who would have told you?" "Your stepmother spent 15 years making sure you never sang. Making sure you never even spoke above a whisper." Alessandro knelt beside her. Why would she do that unless she knew the truth? Unless she knew you had a gift worth suppressing? The words crashed over Vera like a wave. All those years. All that silence. All that shame. Had it been a lie? All of it? "I don't understand. Why would Margaret do that?" "I don't know. But we're going to find out." Alessandro took her hands. "And then we're going to make sure she never silences you again." For the first time since her mother died, Vera let herself cry. Not silent tears. Loud, gasping sobs that echoed through the music room. And Alessandro held her, this stranger who was her husband, until the storm passed. When she could breathe again, she pulled back and looked at him. "What happens now?" "Now we find your voice." Alessandro stood and offered her his hand. "The real one. Not the whisper your stepmother forced on you. Your gift." "I'm scared." "I know. But you don't have to do this alone. I'll help you. If you'll let me." Vera took his hand and let him pull her to her feet. "Yes. Help me." They spent the rest of that evening in the music room. Alessandro played while Vera sang. Scales at first. Simple exercises. Then melodies. Her voice was untrained, raw in places, but the foundation was extraordinary. A natural soprano with a tone that could move from crystalline heights to warm, rich depths. "You've never had lessons," Alessandro said, astonished. "This is all instinct. My mother used to sing to me when I was little. Maybe I remember some of it. This isn't just memory. This is talent. Do you understand how rare this is?" By the time Rosa knocked on the door to tell them dinner was ready, Vera's throat was tired, but her heart felt lighter than it had in years. She could sing. She really could sing. Over dinner, they talked about what came next. Alessandro suggested hiring a vocal coach. Vera was hesitant. "What if I'm not as good as you think? What if this was just a fluke?" "It wasn't a fluke. But if you need proof, we'll keep working together. Every day. Until you believe what I already know." "Why are you doing this?" Alessandro was quiet for a moment. "Because someone took something precious from you and convinced you it never existed. That's a kind of cruelty I can't stand by and watch. And because," he paused, "I know what it's like to lock away beautiful things out of fear. That music room has been sealed for 10 years because I was afraid of the grief it would bring. You opened it. You brought it back to life. Maybe it's time I did the same for you." That night, Vera lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Her throat was pleasantly tired from singing. Her mind was racing with everything that had happened. Margaret had lied to her. For 15 years, she had been told her voice was defective, terrible, something to hide and be ashamed of. And all of it had been a lie. But why? What possible reason could Margaret have had? Vera fell asleep with that question circling in her mind. The answer came 2 weeks later, when Margaret showed up at the mansion unannounced. Vera was in the music room, practicing with Alessandro. They had fallen into a routine. Every afternoon, when he came home from the opera house, they worked together for 2 hours. Her voice was growing stronger, more controlled, more stunning with each passing day. She was singing an aria from La Bohème when Rosa appeared in the doorway, her expression tight. "Mrs. Costagliano's. Your stepmother is here." Vera's blood turned cold. The music died in her throat. "What does she want?" "She says she needs to speak with you. She's in the main sitting room. Mr. Costagliano's is with her." Vera forced herself to walk to the sitting room. Each step felt like moving through water. When she entered, she found Margaret sitting on the sofa, looking elegant and cold as always. Alessandro stood near the window, his expression unreadable. Vera. Margaret's smile didn't reach her eyes. You look well. Marriage clearly agrees with you. What are you doing here? I came to see how you're settling in. And to discuss a small matter with your husband. Alessandro's jaw tightened. Mrs. Ashford has made a request. Not a request. Margaret's voice hardened. A demand. I raised Vera for 15 years after her father died. Clothed her, fed her, gave her a home. That wasn't free. I'm owed compensation. Compensation? Vera stared at her. You're asking for money. $1 million. Margaret crossed her legs. A small price for 15 years of my life spent caring for a child who wasn't mine. Caring for me. You made my life miserable. You told me I was worthless. That my voice was terrible. That I should be grateful anyone would tolerate me. I gave you realistic expectations. Margaret's eyes were ice. You were a plain, unremarkable girl with no prospects. I made sure you understood that so you wouldn't be disappointed. You lied to her. Alessandro's voice was dangerously quiet. You told her she couldn't sing when she has one of the most beautiful voices I've ever heard. Margaret's expression flickered. So she's been singing for you. How quaint. Why did you do it? Vera stepped forward. Why did you spend 15 years telling me I was defective? What did I ever do to you? You existed. Margaret stood, and for the first time, Vera saw the mask slip. Saw the coldness underneath. Your father changed his will before he died. Left everything in trust for you until you turned 25. I got a modest allowance to care for you, but the bulk of the estate, the house, the money, the investments, it's all yours. As of last year. Vera felt dizzy. What? Did you really think I'd let you discover your mother's talent and run off to pursue some opera career? You would have left. Become independent. I'd have lost access to the house, to the lifestyle I'd built. So I made sure you stayed small. Quiet. Dependent. Margaret smiled coldly. It worked for years. Until you got desperate enough to accept this arrangement. You kept her imprisoned. Alessandro moved to stand beside Vera. You stole 15 years of her life. Her voice. Her confidence. All to maintain control over money that was never yours. Money she didn't even know existed. And if you don't give me what I'm asking for, I'll make sure everyone knows the truth about this marriage. That it's a sham. A business arrangement. How do you think your opera house board will react when they learn you lied to them? The threat hung in the air. Vera felt the old fear rising. The instinct to stay quiet. To not make trouble. To let Margaret have what she wanted because fighting was too dangerous. Then she remembered her voice. Filling the music room. Strong and clear and real. She looked at Alessandro. He was watching her. Waiting. Not telling her what to do. Giving her the choice. No. Vera's voice wasn't a whisper. It was clear and firm. Margaret blinked. Excuse me. I said no. You're not getting any money. You're not getting anything from me. Ever again. You ungrateful little. I'm not ungrateful. Vera's voice grew stronger. I'm done. You took 15 years of my life. You made me believe I was broken. You silenced me because you were afraid of who I might become if I found my voice. Well, I found it. And I'm never going to be quiet again. Margaret's face flushed with rage. You'll regret this. Go ahead and tell everyone about our arrangement. Alessandro stepped forward, his voice ice. Because the truth is, yes, this marriage started as business. But it's not that anymore. Vera is my wife in every sense that matters. And if you try to hurt her, if you try to take anything else from her, I will personally ensure that every door in society closes to you. You can't threaten me. I'm not threatening. I'm explaining consequences. Alessandro's amber eyes were cold. You're a woman with no income beyond what you stole from Vera's trust fund. I have lawyers, resources, and connections that could make your life very difficult. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave. You're going to sign over full control of Vera's inheritance. And you're never going to contact her again. And if I refuse? Then I'll make sure everyone in your social circle knows exactly what you did. How you abused an orphan child. How you stole from her. How you systematically destroyed her confidence to maintain control. Your reputation won't survive that exposure. Neither will your lifestyle. Margaret looked between them. Her power was crumbling and she knew it. You deserve each other, she said finally, her voice vicious. A desperate opera director and a girl who wasted her mother's name. Get out, Vera said. Her voice rang clear through the room. And don't come back. Margaret grabbed her purse and walked to the door. She paused there, looking back one last time. You think you've won. But you'll fail. You'll get on some stage and everyone will hear what I've always known. That you're nothing special. Nothing at all. Then the door slammed shut behind her. The sound echoed through the mansion. Silence filled the sitting room. Vera's hands were shaking. She had done it. She had actually stood up to Margaret. Told her no. Refused to let her win. Alessandro pulled her into his arms. I'm so proud of you. I was terrified. I know. But you did it anyway. That's courage. What if she really does tell everyone about our arrangement? Then we'll handle it together. Alessandro pulled back to look at her face. But Vera, she was right about one thing. This marriage started as an arrangement. It doesn't have to stay that way. What are you saying? I'm saying I've fallen in love with my wife. Somewhere between opening that music room and hearing you sing, between dinners and conversations and watching you discover who you really are, I fell completely in love with you. Vera's eyes filled with tears. I love you too. I didn't expect to. But I do. He kissed her then. Not the formal, brief kiss from their wedding. This was real. Deep and tender and full of promise. His hands cupped her face gently, his thumbs brushing away her tears. When they pulled apart, both of them were breathless. So what happens now? Vera asked. Now we stop pretending this is just business. Now we build something real together. Alessandro took her hand. If you want that. I want it. More than anything. Rosa appeared in the doorway, tactfully clearing her throat. Excuse me. I just wanted to make sure everything was all right. I heard the door slam. Everything's fine, Rosa. Alessandro smiled. Better than fine, actually. Mrs. Ashford won't be bothering us anymore. Good. Rosa's expression was fierce. That woman never deserved you, dear. Your mother would have been ashamed of how she treated you. After Rosa left, Vera and Alessandro returned to the music room. But this time, they didn't practice. They sat together on the piano bench, his arm around her shoulders, and just talked. Tell me about your mother, Vera said. What was she like? Alessandro's expression grew distant but warm. She was larger than life. When she walked into a room, everyone noticed. Not because she demanded attention, but because she radiated something. Joy, I think. Or passion. She loved music the way most people love breathing. It was essential to her. You must miss her terribly. Every day. But I'm starting to realize I've been honoring her memory in the wrong way. Locking this room, avoiding music, keeping everything sealed away. She wouldn't have wanted that. She would have wanted the music to continue. He looked at Vera. She would have loved you. Would have loved your voice. Would have insisted on training you herself. I wish I could have met her. Me too. Alessandro kissed Vera's temple. But maybe, in a way, she brought us together. Her room. Her piano. Her legacy. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, just being together. Finally, Alessandro spoke again. I meant what I said earlier. About hiring you a vocal coach. If you're willing, I'd like to bring in the best. Elena Volkov. She's worked with some of the greatest sopranos in the world. That sounds expensive. Money isn't the issue. Your talent is. Vera, you could be extraordinary with proper training. You could perform professionally if you wanted to. The idea terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. I don't know if I'm ready for that. You don't have to decide now. We'll start with Elena. See where it goes. No pressure. No expectations. Just see what your voice can become. Over the next 3 months, Vera's life transformed. Elena Volkov came to the mansion 3 times a week, working with Vera for hours at a time. The vocal coach was demanding, precise, and utterly brilliant. Under her guidance, Vera's raw talent began to take shape. She learned proper breathing technique, how to support her voice from her diaphragm, how to shape vowels and navigate difficult passages, how to interpret the emotion behind the notes. Elena was stern but not unkind. "You have a gift," she told Vera after their first week together. "A voice like this comes along perhaps once in a generation. But raw talent alone is not enough. You must work. You must discipline yourself. Are you willing to do that?" "Yes." Vera didn't hesitate. "I want to learn everything." "Good. Then we begin." The work was hard. Vera practiced for hours every day. Her throat would get tired. Sometimes she'd hit a difficult passage and want to give up. But Alessandro was always there, encouraging her, reminding her how far she'd come. And in the evenings, after practice was done, they would have dinner together. Real conversations. Learning about each other. Falling deeper in love. Alessandro told her about his childhood. Growing up with a mother who was constantly traveling for performances. How he'd felt abandoned sometimes, even though he understood she was following her passion. How he'd promised himself he would never let his career consume him the way hers had consumed her. "But then she died," he said one night over wine, "and I broke that promise. I threw myself into the opera house. Worked 80-hour weeks. Used business as a shield against grief. Until I married you and remembered what it felt like to have someone to come home to." Vera told him about her father. How kind he'd been. How he'd loved her mother with such devotion that after she died, he'd never been quite the same. How the car accident that killed him had felt almost inevitable, like he'd been trying to follow Isabella into death. "I think that's why Margaret resented me so much," Vera said. "I was a reminder of the love she could never inspire in him. He married her for convenience, to give me a mother figure. But he never loved her. And she knew it. That doesn't excuse what she did to you. No. But it helps me understand it." They grew closer in other ways too. Small intimacies that built trust and affection. Alessandro would brush Vera's hair back from her face while she sang. Vera would straighten his tie in the mornings before he left for work. They held hands during walks through the garden. Fell asleep on the couch together watching old films. One evening, about 2 months into Vera's training, Alessandro came home with news. "How would you feel about moving into my room? Or me moving into yours? I miss you at night. Miss falling asleep beside you and waking up together." Vera's heart swelled. "I'd like that." They chose Alessandro's room. It was larger, with windows overlooking the gardens and enough space for both of them. That night, they lay together in the darkness, Vera's head on Alessandro's chest, listening to his heartbeat. "This feels right," she whispered. "It does. Are you happy?" "More than I ever thought I could be again." He stroked her hair gently. "You've given me something I thought I'd lost forever. Hope. You gave me that first. You gave me my voice back. We gave each other everything." 3 months into Vera's training, Elena made an announcement. "You're ready." "Ready for what?" Vera asked. "To perform. Not publicly yet, but for an audience. A small one. I've arranged for you to sing at a private salon I host monthly. 20 people. Industry professionals. People who understand vocal artistry. If you're comfortable with that." Vera looked at Alessandro, who had been sitting quietly in the corner during the lesson. He nodded encouragement. "I'll do it." The salon was held in Elena's elegant Manhattan apartment. Vera wore a simple black dress that Alessandro had bought for her. Her hair was pulled back, no elaborate styling. She wanted the focus to be on her voice, not her appearance. The 20 guests were exactly who Elena had promised. Opera directors, vocal coaches, music critics, a few established singers. They sat in Elena's living room with glasses of wine, waiting. Vera stood beside the piano. A accompanist Elena had hired sat ready at the keys. "I'm going to sing Sai, Am I Chiamano Mimi from La Boheme," Vera said. Her voice was quiet but steady. This was my mother's signature role. I sing it in her memory. The room went silent. The piano began. And Vera sang. Her voice filled the space. Sweet and clear and achingly beautiful. She sang about being called Mimi, about making silk flowers, about living simply. The aria was gentle, introspective, and Vera poured her heart into every note. When she finished, silence hung in the air for a long moment. Then a woman in the front row began to cry. She stood, applauding. Others joined her. Soon the entire room was on its feet, clapping and calling out praise. Extraordinary. Stunning. Isabella's daughter indeed. Elena approached Vera with tears in her eyes. That was perfection. You're ready for more than salons, my dear. You're ready for a stage. After the performance, several people approached Vera. A director from a small opera company asked if she'd be interested in auditioning. A vocal coach offered to work with her on expanding her repertoire. A music critic asked for an interview. Alessandro stood back, watching with obvious pride. When they finally left Elena's apartment, he pulled Vera close on the sidewalk. Do you understand what just happened in there? Those are some of the most respected people in the opera world. And they were in awe of you. I can barely believe it's real. Believe it. You have a gift, Vera. And now the world is starting to see it. But that night, alone in their room, Vera felt the old doubts creeping back in. What if Margaret was right? She asked Alessandro as they got ready for bed. What if I get on a real stage and fail? What if people hate me? Alessandro sat beside her on the bed. Margaret spent 15 years lying to you. Why would she suddenly be right now? Because what if she wasn't lying? What if she was just being realistic? What if I'm good in small rooms but can't handle a real theater? Vera. He took her hands. Listen to me. I've spent my entire career evaluating talent. I know the difference between a good voice and a great one. You are great. But more than that, you have something money can't buy and lessons can't teach. You have the ability to make people feel. That's the rarest gift of all. How do you know? Because I felt it. That day in the music room when you sang for me the first time. I felt my mother's presence. Felt music come alive again after years of keeping it locked away. You did that, Vera. Your voice did that. She leaned against him, drawing strength from his certainty. Over the next few weeks, word spread about Isabella Ashford's daughter. The soprano who had appeared seemingly out of nowhere with a voice that recalled the golden age of opera. Offers started coming in. A small opera company wanted her for their production of La Traviata. A concert series asked her to perform Baroque arias. A recording studio wanted to make a demo. But it was Alessandro who presented the offer that mattered most. He came home one evening with a folder of papers. My opera house is doing La Bohème in 2 months. We need a Mimi. I'd like you to audition. Vera looked up from the book she was reading. Alessandro, I can't. That's too much. Too fast. Why? Because I've never performed in a real theater. Never sung with an orchestra. What if I freeze? What if I ruin your production? You won't. And even if you did freeze, even if you made mistakes, you'd learn from them. But Vera, I don't think you will. I think you're ready. You're biased. You love me. I do love you. But I'm also a professional director who wouldn't risk a major production on someone who couldn't handle it. He sat beside her. I believe in your talent. But more importantly, you need to believe in it. Performing will prove to yourself that Margaret was wrong about everything. Vera considered this. The idea terrified her. But Alessandro was right. She'd spent her whole life being told she couldn't sing. Performing would prove once and for all that the lie had been broken. All right. I'll audition. The audition was held on the stage of the Costigliano's Opera House. Vera stood in the wings, her heart pounding, as Alessandro introduced her to the production team. The music director, the stage manager, the conductor, the lead tenor who would be playing Rodolfo. They were all professionals. Polite but evaluating. This was business, not a favor to the director's wife. Whenever you're ready, the conductor said. Vera walked onto the stage. The theater was dark except for the stage lights. She couldn't see the production team in the audience, but she could feel them watching, judging. She sang sigh, "Am I chiamano Mimi again?" The aria she'd practiced hundreds of times. The role her mother had made famous. Her voice filled the theater. The acoustics were perfect, carrying every note to the furthest balcony. She sang about being Mimi, about simple pleasures, about the first rays of April sun. When she finished, silence. Then the conductor spoke from the darkness. "That was extraordinary. Miss Ashford, the role is yours if you want it." Relief and terror washed over Vera in equal measure. "I want it." That evening, Alessandro took her to dinner at an elegant restaurant to celebrate. Over champagne, he raised his glass. "To my wife. My brilliant, talented, courageous wife. You're going to be magnificent. I'm terrified." "Good. Terror means you care. It means the performance matters." He reached across the table to take her hand. "But Vera, I need you to know something. Whether you're singing on stage or never perform again, I love you. Your worth isn't tied to your voice or your success. You matter because of who you are." Tears filled Vera's eyes. "No one's ever said anything like that to me before." "Then I'll keep saying it until you believe it." Rehearsals began the following week. Vera worked with the cast every day, learning blocking, stage movement, how to interact with the other singers. The director was demanding but fair. He pushed Vera to go deeper emotionally, to find the vulnerability in Mimi's character. The other singers were welcoming. The tenor playing Rodolfo, a man named Marcus Chen, was particularly kind. He'd worked with Isabella Ashford years ago and remembered her fondly. "Your mother was extraordinary," he told Vera during a break. "Not just talented, but generous. She always made time to help younger singers. I was terrified during my first major role, and she talked me through it." "What did she say?" "That the audience wants you to succeed. They've paid money and given their time because they want to experience something beautiful. Your job is just to give them that gift." She smiled. "Don't overthink it. Just sing from your heart." The advice settled something in Vera. Her mother had been kind, had helped others, had understood that performance was about generosity, not perfection. As opening night approached, Vera's nerves intensified. She practiced obsessively, running through her arias again and again until Alessandro gently stopped her. "You're ready. More practice now will just exhaust you. Trust your preparation. What if I forget the words? What if my voice cracks? Then you'll recover and keep going. Vera, you've worked so hard. You've earned this moment. Don't let fear steal it from you." The night before opening night, Vera couldn't sleep. She lay in bed beside Alessandro, staring at the ceiling. "Tell me something," she said into the darkness. "Anything. Do you think my mother would be proud of me?" Alessandro turned to face her. "I think she would be overwhelmed with pride. Her daughter, singing her signature role, using the gift she passed down. Yes, Vera. She would be so proud. I wish she could be here. Maybe she will be. In her own way." Opening night arrived. Vera stood in her dressing room, staring at her reflection. She wore Mimi's costume, a simple dress meant to evoke poverty and innocence. Her hair was styled in soft curls. Makeup made her look younger, more vulnerable. A knock on the door. "Come in." Alessandro entered, elegant in a dark suit. He closed the door behind him and just looked at her for a moment. "You're beautiful." "I'm terrified." "I know." He came to stand behind her, meeting her eyes in the mirror. "But you're also ready. You know this role. You've lived it. Mimi discovers love while facing death. You've discovered love while reclaiming your life. Sing from that truth. What if I fail? Then you'll have tried. And that's more than Margaret ever allowed you to do." He kissed the top of her head. "But you won't fail. I believe in you completely." A stage manager knocked. 5 minutes, Miss Ashford." Alessandro squeezed her shoulders. "I'll be in the audience. Front row. If you get nervous, just find my eyes. I'll be right there with you." After he left, Vera took a deep breath. This was it. Everything she'd worked for. Everything Margaret had tried to prevent. She walked to the wings. The orchestra was tuning. The audience was settling into their seats. Through a gap in the curtain, she could see Alessandro in the front row, exactly where he'd promised to be. The theatre was packed. Every seat filled. The premiere of La Bohème at the Costillanos Opera House, featuring the debut of Isabella Ashford's daughter. The house lights dimmed. The conductor raised his baton. The overture began. And then it was time. Vera walked onto the stage. The lights were bright, the audience dark beyond them. She found her mark. Took her breath. The tenor playing Rodolfo began his lines. Their voices wove together, telling the story of two people meeting by chance, falling in love against all odds. When it came time for Sai, and my Chiamano Mimi, Vera let everything else fall away. She thought about her mother singing this same aria. About Alessandro hearing her voice for the first time in the music room. About the girl she'd been, silent and scared, and the woman she'd become. She sang. Her voice filled the theatre. Sweet and clear and heartbreakingly beautiful. She sang about being called Mimi, about making flowers from silk, about living simply but dreaming of spring. The audience was utterly silent. Transfixed. Vera sang through the first act. Then the second. The third. The heartbreaking fourth act where Mimi returns, dying, to Rodolfo's arms. As she sang the final scene, Vera let herself feel all of it. The grief. The love. The acceptance of death. Her voice carried Mimi's farewell, and in the audience, people began to cry. The final note faded. Mimi died in Rodolfo's arms. The lights went dark. For a heartbeat, silence. Then the theatre erupted. Applause like thunder. People on their feet. Shouting brava. Crying. Cheering. Vera stood for her bow, overwhelmed. The applause didn't stop. It grew louder. Someone in the balcony threw flowers onto the stage. In the front row, Alessandro stood applauding, tears streaming down his face. The curtain calls went on for 10 minutes. Vera bowed again and again, her heart so full she thought it might burst. Backstage, people swarmed her. The cast congratulated her. The director hugged her. Strangers appeared wanting autographs. But it was Alessandro who finally broke through the crowd. He pulled her into his arms and just held her. You were transcendent. I can barely believe it happened. Believe it. You were perfection. That night, the reviews came in. Every major publication had sent critics. And they were unanimous. A star is born. Isabella Ashford's daughter inherits her mother's gift and makes it her own. The most promising soprano of her generation. Vera Costillanos is a name opera lovers will be talking about for years. Vera read them in disbelief. This was her. They were writing about her. Over the next few weeks, the production sold out every performance. Word spread. The girl who'd been told she couldn't sing was now being hailed as the future of opera. But even as her career began to take flight, Vera found herself thinking more about Alessandro than about fame. About the man who'd heard her voice when she'd been silenced. Who'd believed in her when she couldn't believe in herself. One evening, 3 months after opening night, Alessandro came home with a strange expression. I need to tell you something. Vera looked up from the score she'd been studying. All right. Do you remember when we got married? The courthouse ceremony? Of course. I've been thinking about it. About how neither of us chose it. How it was just a transaction to solve our problems. Vera's stomach dropped. Are you saying you regret it? No. God, no. Alessandro sat beside her. I'm saying I want to do it again. For real this time. What? He pulled a small box from his pocket. Vera Catherine Ashford Costillanos. Will you marry me? Not because of business or opera houses or escape. Because I love you. Because I want to stand in front of everyone who matters and tell them you're mine and I'm yours. Because I want to choose you, freely and completely. Inside the box was a ring. Simple and perfect. Nothing like the plain band from their first wedding. This was chosen with love. Vera's eyes filled with tears. Yes. 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 Absolutely yes. He slipped the ring onto her finger and kissed her deeply. When they pulled apart, both were crying and laughing at the same time. Have you ever held back from sharing your gifts with the world because someone convinced you that you weren't good enough? Vera almost did. But sometimes love gives us the courage to try. If this story is inspiring you, please subscribe to Tales of Desire by Mr. Walker and let me know in the comments what dream you've been too afraid to chase. Your voice matters. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. They planned the vow renewal for 2 months later. This time, Vera got to choose everything. The location, the flowers, the dress, the guest list. She chose the music room, the place where everything had changed, where she'd first discovered her voice, where Alessandro had first heard her sing. Rosa helped prepare the space. They brought in chairs for the small group of guests, flowers in white and gold, candles that would glow softly in the evening light. Vera invited Elena, Marcus Chen, a few friends from the opera company. Rosa, of course. Alessandro's father flew in from across the country. His sister came from university. And Vera tracked down Mrs. Patterson, the foster mother who'd been kind to her all those years ago. When Mrs. Patterson arrived at the mansion the day before the ceremony, she pulled Vera into a long hug. Look at you. An opera singer. Married to a man who loves you. Living in this beautiful house. I always knew you'd find your way. You were one of the only people who was ever kind to me. You deserved kindness. You always did. The day of the vow renewal arrived. Vera stood in her room, looking at herself in the mirror. She wore a pale gold dress that made her skin glow. Her hair was styled in soft waves. She looked happy. She looked loved. A knock on the door. Come in. Alessandro's sister entered. Vera had met her several times now and liked her immensely. She was studying music history at university and had her brother's same passion for opera. You look beautiful. She smiled. My brother is going to lose his mind when he sees you. I'm nervous. Why? You already married him once. That's different. This time I'm choosing it. Choosing him. That feels bigger somehow. It is bigger. But that's what makes it real. They walked together to the music room. A violinist was playing softly as guests found their seats. When the music changed to the wedding march, everyone stood. Vera walked down the short aisle alone. Not because she didn't have anyone to give her away, but because she was giving herself. She was choosing Alessandro freely, without coercion or necessity. He waited at the front of the room, standing beside the piano where he'd first heard her sing. When he saw her, his face transformed. Pure joy. Pure love. Hi, she said when she reached him. Hi. His voice was thick with emotion. You're beautiful. So are you. The officiant smiled. Alessandro and Vera have chosen to write their own vows. Alessandro, would you like to begin? Alessandro took both of Vera's hands in his. When I married you the first time, I thought I was making a sacrifice. I thought I was giving up my chance at real love to save my opera house. I was so wrong. He paused, gathering himself. Vera, you're not a sacrifice. You're a gift. You took a man who'd locked away his heart and taught him how to feel again. You took a house that felt empty and made it a home. You took a room I'd sealed shut and filled it with music again. You saw value in yourself when the world told you that you had none. And you helped me see my own value too. I promise to spend every day of the rest of my life proving that you made the right choice. I promise to see you, support you, and love you exactly as you are. You're not the bride no one wanted. You're the wife everyone should hope to have. Vera was crying. Alessandro, when we got married the first time, I thought I was worthless. I thought no one could ever really want me. Then you lifted my veil and looked at me like I was something precious. Like I mattered. You were kind when you had no reason to be. You were patient when I was scared. You believed in me when I couldn't believe in myself. You didn't just give me a home. You gave me back myself. I promise to be your partner in everything. To celebrate your victories and support you through challenges. To keep opening locked doors, both literally and emotionally. And to love you with everything I have for as long as I live. You saved 800 jobs when you married me. But you saved me too. The officiant wiped at his own eyes. By the power vested in me, and by the love so clearly shared between you, I pronounce you husband and wife. Again. Alessandro, you may kiss your bride. Alessandro cupped Vera's face gently and kissed her. Not the formal kiss from the courthouse. This was deep and passionate and full of promise. Their guests cheered and applauded. But there was one more surprise. As they pulled apart, Elena stood and moved to the piano. I'd like to ask the bride to sing for us, if she's willing. Vera looked at Alessandro, who smiled and nodded. She walked to stand beside the piano. Elena played the opening bars of Quando in Vio, the aria Vera had first sung in this very room. And Vera sang. Her voice filled the space, beautiful and confident. She sang about walking through the streets, about people stopping to admire her. She sang with joy and freedom and the certainty of being loved. When she finished, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. The reception was held in the garden. Rosa had prepared a feast. There was champagne and laughter and dancing as the sun set. Alessandro's father pulled him aside. I owe you an apology, son. I should have been there for you after your mother died. Instead I ran. I'm sorry. I know, Dad. And I forgive you. Your wife is remarkable. You chose well. I didn't choose her. Not at first. But I chose to love her. And that made all the difference. Later, as the party wound down, Vera and Alessandro stood alone in the music room. The candles still flickered. The flowers still bloomed. Happy? Alessandro asked. More than I ever thought possible. Me too. He pulled her close. You know what the crazy part is? What? If your stepmother hadn't forced you into that marriage, if my opera house hadn't been failing, we never would have met. So maybe things didn't go wrong. Maybe they went exactly the way they were supposed to. Alessandro kissed her forehead. I don't usually believe in fate. But meeting you makes me think maybe some things are meant to be. That night, lying in bed together, Vera thought about everything that had happened. From the courthouse wedding where she'd whispered her vows in shame, to the vow renewal where she'd sung them with confidence. From believing she had no voice, to performing on opera stages. All of it because one man had heard her silence and known it was hiding a song. Over the next year, Vera's career flourished. She performed in 3 more productions at Alessandro's opera house. She was offered roles at other companies. A recording contract. International performance opportunities. But the opportunity that mattered most came 18 months after her debut. La Scala in Milan wanted her to sing Violetta in La Traviata, her mother's signature role, on one of the most prestigious stages in the world. When the offer came, Vera sat with it for a long time before telling Alessandro. What's wrong? He asked when he found her staring at the letter. La Scala wants me. She handed him the offer. He read it, then looked up with shining eyes. Vera, this is incredible. This is the opportunity of a lifetime. It's terrifying. Of course it is. But you can do it. What if I'm not as good as my mother was? You're not trying to be your mother. You're being yourself. Honoring her legacy while creating your own. Will you come with me? I'll be in the front row. Always. They flew to Milan 6 weeks later. Vera rehearsed with the cast, learned the staging, worked with the conductor. Everything felt surreal. This was La Scala. The same stage where the greatest singers in history had performed. Opening night arrived. Vera stood backstage in Violetta's costume, her heart pounding. Through the curtain, she could see the theatre filling. Every seat sold. People had come from around the world to see Isabella Ashford's daughter sing her mother's role. Alessandro found her in the wings. You're ready. Am I? He kissed her gently. You're extraordinary. Now go prove it to the world. The curtain rose. The orchestra began. Vera stepped onto the stage. She sang the party scene with brightness and charm. She sang the heartbreak of giving up love with devastating emotion. And in the final act, when Violetta dies, Vera poured everything into it. All her grief for the mother she'd lost. All her joy for the life she'd found. All her love for the man watching from the audience. The final note faded. Violetta died. The lights dimmed. Then La Scala erupted. The applause was deafening. People rose to their feet. Flowers rained onto the stage. The standing ovation lasted 15 minutes. Vera took her bows, tears streaming down her face. In the front row, Alessandro stood applauding, his face radiant with pride. After the performance, reporters crowded around. "Miss Ashford, what does it feel like to follow in your mother's footsteps?" "It feels like coming home. But I'm not following her footsteps. I'm walking beside her, carrying her legacy forward while making my own." "And your husband? Is it true he discovered your voice?" "He didn't discover it." Vera smiled. "He reminded me it existed. There's a difference." That night, in their hotel room, Alessandro held her close. "I'm so proud of you. This is your triumph too. You made this possible. We made it possible. Together." Vera thought about the girl she'd been. Silent and scared, convinced she had nothing to offer the world. And she thought about the woman she'd become. A singer. A wife. Someone who'd reclaimed everything that had been stolen from her. "Can I tell you something?" she asked. "Anything. Sometimes I still can't believe this is real. That I get to do what I love. That I'm married to someone who sees me. That I have a voice that people want to hear. It's real. And you've earned every bit of it." They fell asleep tangled together. And Vera dreamed of music. Of stages and spotlights and audiences. Of her mother's voice blending with her own. Of all the songs still waiting to be sung. 2 years later, Vera stood backstage at the Metropolitan Opera in New York. She was about to perform Mimi in La Boheme again. Full circle from her debut. But this time, there was someone new in the audience. In the third row sat Mrs. Patterson, the foster mother who'd been kind to her all those years ago. And beside her, 3 young women. Foster children Mrs. Patterson was caring for now. Mrs. Patterson had written to Vera months ago. "The girls have difficult backgrounds. They've been told they're not smart enough, not talented enough, not worthy enough. I thought maybe hearing your story, seeing you perform, might help them believe in themselves." Of course, Vera had written back. "Bring them. I'll make sure they have the best seats." Now, standing in the wings, Vera thought about those 3 girls. About the lies they'd been told. About the potential locked inside them that the world couldn't see yet. She understood exactly how they felt. The curtain rose. Vera walked onto the stage. And she sang. Not just for the audience. Not just for Alessandro, sitting in his usual front row seat. She sang for the 3 foster girls who needed to know that their past didn't define their future. That the voices telling them they weren't enough were lying. That they could become anyone they wanted to be. She sang for the girl she'd been. The one who'd believed she was defective and worthless and broken. And she sang for her mother, whose gift had been passed down like a torch, lighting the way home. When the performance ended and the applause thundered through the Met, Vera found those 3 girls in the audience. They were on their feet, clapping and crying. One of them mouthed the words "thank you." Vera bowed. And in that moment, she understood something profound. Her voice had been stolen from her for 15 years. But now that she'd reclaimed it, she could use it to help others find theirs. To remind them that the lies people tell you about yourself aren't truth. That you're not broken or defective or unwanted. You're just waiting. Waiting for someone to help you remember who you really are. After the performance, Vera met the foster girls backstage. They were shy at first, overwhelmed by meeting a real opera singer. But Vera sat with them. Told them her story. About Margaret and the lies. About Alessandro and the music room. About finding her voice after years of silence. "You all have gifts too," she told them. "Maybe not singing. Maybe something else. But you have something special inside you. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise." One of the girls, maybe 14, spoke up quietly. "My teacher says I'm not smart enough for college." Vera's chest tightened. Teachers can be wrong. I was told my whole life that I couldn't sing. But here I am. Your teacher doesn't get to define your future. You do. Really? Really? As the girls left with Mrs. Patterson, Vera felt Alessandro's arm slip around her waist. "That was good of you. I just wanted them to know they matter." They'll never forget this. Neither will I. They drove home through the city. Manhattan lights sparkled around them. Inside the car, they sat close together, comfortable in the silence. "What are you thinking about?" Alessandro asked. "About how different my life could have been. If I'd stayed with Margaret. If I'd believed her lies forever. If you hadn't heard me sing that day. But you didn't stay. You didn't believe her. And I did hear you. I know. And I'm grateful for all of it. Even the hard parts. Because they led me here." When they got home, Rosa was waiting with warm tea and congratulations on another triumphant performance. They sat in the kitchen together, the three of them, talking about the show and laughing about a tenor who'd forgotten his entrance. This is what home feels like, Vera thought. Not the mansion or the expensive furniture. But this. People who love you. Laughter in the kitchen. Belonging. Later, alone in their room, Alessandro pulled Vera close. "I have something for you." "Another surprise?" "A small one." He handed her an envelope. "Open it." Inside was a letter from a music academy. They wanted Vera to teach a masterclass for young singers. To share her technique and her story. "They think I can teach." "They know you can. You have the technical skill. But more than that, you have empathy. You understand what it's like to doubt yourself. That makes you the perfect teacher." Vera read the letter again. A masterclass. Passing on what she'd learned. Helping other singers find their voices. "I want to do it." "I thought you might." Over the next few years, Vera balanced performing with teaching. She sang at opera houses around the world. And she taught classes full of young singers who were just starting their journeys. Some of them were confident. Others were terrified. All of them needed someone to believe in them. Vera understood that need intimately. One student in particular stood out. A young woman named Claire who had a beautiful voice but could barely speak above a whisper in normal conversation. During their first private lesson, Vera asked her why. "My mom says I'm too loud. That I should be quieter. More ladylike." Vera's heart broke. She saw herself in this girl. "And how many people do you let silence you before you forget you ever had a voice?" Claire looked up, startled by the question. "I don't know. I do. I let someone silence me for 15 years. Told me my voice was terrible. That I should never sing. And I believed her until someone else heard me and told me the truth." "What was the truth?" "That my voice was a gift. That I'd been lied to. That I deserved to be heard." Claire's eyes filled with tears. "Do you think my voice is a gift?" Vera smiled. "I know it is. And I'm going to help you believe it." They worked together for months. Slowly, Claire's confidence grew. Her voice strengthened. By the end of the year, she performed in the Academy showcase and brought the audience to tears. Afterward, she hugged Vera tightly. "Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for letting me." As Vera watched Claire embrace her family, she felt Alessandro's hand slip into hers. He'd come to watch the showcase. "You're changing lives," he said quietly. "I'm just doing what you did for me. Listening. Believing. And that's everything." 10 years after their courthouse wedding, Vera and Alessandro stood in the music room again. It was late at night. The house was quiet. They'd just returned from a gala where Vera had been honored for her contributions to opera. But the award didn't matter as much as this moment. Just the two of them. In the room where everything had changed. "Play something for me," Vera said. Alessandro sat at the piano. His fingers moved over the keys, playing the opening of Quando MNVO. The aria Vera had first sung in this room. She began to sing. But this time, she wasn't nervous or uncertain. She knew her voice. Knew its power. Knew its worth. When she finished, Alessandro stood and pulled her into his arms. "I never get tired of hearing you sing. I never get tired of singing for you. Do you remember what I said that first day? When I heard you. You said my stepmother had lied. That my voice was extraordinary. I was right. You were. But you gave me more than that. You gave me permission to believe it. To trust myself." Alessandro kissed her softly. And you gave me a reason to open doors I'd closed. To let music back into my life. To love again. They swayed together in the quiet room. Outside, the city glowed. But in here, there was only peace. Only love. Only the certainty that they'd found exactly what they needed in each other. The whispers had been wrong. Vera wasn't the bride no one wanted. She was the woman who'd always been extraordinary. She'd just been silenced by someone who feared her power. But silence could be broken. Lies could be shattered. And voices, once freed, could change the world. Vera had learned that lesson. And now she spent her life teaching it to others. Your voice matters. Your gifts are real. The people who try to silence you are afraid of your strength, not proof of your weakness. And sometimes, all it takes is one person who listens. One person who believes. One person who says, I hear you, and what you have to say is beautiful. Alessandro had been that person for Vera. And now Vera was that person for countless others. The girl who'd been told she couldn't sing had become one of the greatest sopranos of her generation. Not because she was perfect, but because she'd been brave enough to try. If this story touched you, if it reminded you that the lies people tell you about yourself aren't truth, leave a comment below. Share what gift you've been hiding. What voice you've been afraid to use. And if you know someone who needs to hear this message, someone who's been told they're not enough, share this story with them. Hit that subscribe button for Tales of Desire by Mr. Walker. Because your voice matters. Your gifts are real. And you deserve to be heard. Sometimes the most beautiful music comes from the quietest places. You just need someone willing to listen. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to Vera's story. And remember, if you've been silenced, if you've been told you're not enough, those are lies. You are extraordinary. You're just waiting to be found. And maybe, just maybe, today is the day you start believing it. The end.